Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Comfy Org stream. I am always as Purz. No, I am as always Purz. And this is Rob. What's up, Rob?
Hey everyone, glad to be here.
Yeah. So today we're going to hang out with the CEO of Ideogram and the CEO of ComfyOrg once they arrive. But right now we are just going to hang out and talk about how cool this model is. I don't know if you guys have been playing with it yet. You probably have since why you're here. Well, I'll just let Rob gush about it because he's been really stoked about it. But like, this is a very cool new open source model that does bbox regional based prompting. It already has LoRa's, already has a bunch of open source support. So yeah, man, what's your experience with the model been like?
Yeah, no, there's honestly so much we could talk about regarding this model because it kind of opens up a new modality to kind of working with image models with this bbox structure and some custom nodes that, have popped up. You really get like fine grained, like pixel control with the bbox. And there's, workflows popping up from the community for kind of doing some image detection on input images to detect the B boxes, and then you can tweak and refine it to your liking. So yeah, I've been a huge fan. The model also is very stylistically diverse. Like you can really kind of push texture, and especially with graphics. I think that's kind of where the model shines. We have really solid text rendering. So, when it comes to graphic design or just, graphics in general, the font, the flexibility and diversity of fonts you can get out of the model, the texture, it's just really impressive, and it opens up just so many new ways of creating.
Yeah, this is an example here on the left and what we're talking about basically is with the bbox regional prompting, I can say, I want this thing here, I want this thing here, I want this thing here, by literally painting boxes into the area. Like I want the label down in the bottom right, I want the title up here at the top. So it just unlocks this really interesting way of working with the model, especially from an editorial and design point of view. But I see our guests have arrived, so let's bring them on. Hello, everybody. How are we doing today?
Hello. Hi, guys. Excited to be here.
Welcome, welcome. Yeah, we've just been gushing about your model. What's been the ride? What's the ride been like for you, Mohammed?
It's been awesome. We're so happy to see Reddit posts on using the model. It kind of went from everybody saying this model is shit to, oh, actually, this model is insane, and teaching each other how to do bounding box prompting and everything. So it's been a wild ride, and excited to kind of release the next version and work with the community.
That's great. It's funny how that works, right? The community is always they say it's garbage, and then they actually start digging around in it, and they're like, actually, it's pretty cool. And then they dive in a little further. But so before we get started, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, and we can do this more formal introduction before we get started, just so in case anyone doesn't know who you are. Welcome. You want to start, Yoland?
Yeah, I will start. Just to add on to that point, I do think it's an example of like real high quality model eventually gets, kind of over whatever early, difficulty or curve. We've also seen a lot of models that just like claim to be this amazing thing, and then immediately the community realize it's not great. And just crashes down, and no one talk about it afterwards. But anyway, going back, my name is Yoland. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ComfyOrg. It's actually great to be here because Mohammed and I chatted a very long time ago before, actually, around integrating the ideogram model into Comfy. And I remember back then we're kind of pitching in terms of releasing a open weight version of the model. And I do remember I was like, let me just hopefully one day plant a seed and make this happen. And I'm glad this in the end happened, and super excited on our end overall.
Big time. We love it when these companies go open. And Mohammed, maybe you could tell people about your background and where you came from.
Yeah, my name is Mohammad. I'm co-founder and CEO at Ideogram. We've been around over 3 years now. When we launched our first model, people went crazy again. It was about getting text right in images. And we've been continuously grinding, trying to improve the model. And we think quality is the most important aspect for these models. And taste is really important, texture is really important. So it's still work to do. So we're still working hard. And I know editing is really important too. And hopefully we're going to have something on editing. And what's really interesting is I do believe curation plays an extremely important role. And really going the last mile of, okay, this image doesn't meet my bar, so I'm not going to include in the training set. Or this image, okay, I have to include this no matter what. And that is a very subjective decision that we don't want to make as a company. We make some decisions, but we would love to have the best artists, the best creatives, the best AI artists to make these decisions and then share back with the community. And I think that's the real value of the open ecosystem with LoRa's and everything else. And we just have done very little so far. Would love to embrace the community with editing, with LoRa's, and hopefully be the standard for the community to build upon.
That's a really refreshing take on curation in general. I feel like a lot of model training companies feel like they need to decide for you what is aesthetically pleasing. So it's really cool to think that you're actually, going by metrics and data and what people think. That's great. So what, maybe you can tell us a bit more about Ideogram and Imagen. Like how did this all start? Where did you guys come from before you decided to switch to open or embrace open source? What was the whole plan beforehand?
I guess maybe going back before Ideogram, I was at Google. I was there for 7 years, and I was among the first people that saw the potential in text to image. Started this project called Imagen. The OpenAI team scooped us with DALL-E 2, and then we kind of came back with Imagen, and it was really high quality at the time. The problem was it was more like a research effort, not a product. We couldn't release the model to the community, and we couldn't release API. That's kind of a different age in a way. This is before ChatGPT. Google was a lot more conservative. It's kind of refreshing to see Google also is moving forward and releasing these models, pushing the quality forward, which is good for everybody. But then I left and started my own company. I thought I can have a bigger impact. And I was a creative child. I love creativity. I love the visual space. And, I know some of the large language model companies, some of the coding companies make more money. But at the end of the day, for me, it's more like about my passion and what I want to be part of. And the ambition for the company is to be at the forefront of art and culture and design. And that's a very kind of multifaceted space in that you have so many cultures, you have so many communities, and each one of them have their own unique aesthetics. So yeah, that's kind of the story of the company. Really excited to be part of the ecosystem. And before kind of the open weight model, when we started, the space was so open in that we were the best model on the market. Midjourney existed before us. Obviously, they got a lot of attention. But we thought we can build the model and the app and API and everything. But turns out that's actually a lot of work. And like a small company, we're less than 40 people, can't do everything. And with this open weight release, what we're saying is, hey, we would love to work with Comfy guys, with you guys. We would love to work with inference providers. We would love to work with app makers and kind of extend ourselves with partnerships with the open source community, with the developer community and every startup or enterprise in this ecosystem to kind of build a coalition and propose an alternative to the closed source big tech option. So a lot of people like OpenAI and Google models, but we think with the help of the community, we can actually build a better alternative, which is much more versatile, much more customizable. And in this space, it's all about customization, right? So much can be done. And that's our vision for the future, which is slightly different from the initial vision, but at the end of the day, it's art and culture and design.
I do think this is a really interesting aspect where I think you mentioned before, Mohammad, as well, that there are a lot of these major labs that are focusing on, kind of post-training, fine-tuning process that makes these models look very good on, on benchmarks and with simple type of prompt, whereas the Ideogram model is in here giving you the full control over the JSON. Like walk us through a little bit around that kind of philosophy. Why give the entire spectrum overall versus just kind of focusing on combining with an LLM system to allow you to just use simple prompt to get the result or guess what the user's intent is.
Right. So yes, this model is very small relatively compared to some of the closed source models or some of the newer models from companies in the image space. And we've made some design decisions that are unique and different. And as a company, we want to innovate. We think this space still requires a lot of innovation. To answer to your question, why did we go for JSON prompting, these detailed descriptions as opposed to short prompts? It's twofold. One is control. We think, again, most professionals, especially in design, want to control the output. And language is often not enough to control the composition. It's a 2D output. And people are very specific in terms of, okay, I want my logo here, I want my text here, this is the composition I'm going after. And no matter how hard you try to describe the scene, it often ends up not getting what you mean. So we do think the community wants control. This is our best idea as of now of how to give the community more control. It's refreshing to see the community is adopting it. But I'm sure there's a lot more work to do in terms of giving the community even more control. And editing is one thing there, but like the other alternatives, maybe Sketch is another approach, maybe something else. So yes, we're excited to figure out how to give the community more control. And another element is just from a practical AI training point of view, these models perform better the more specific you are. And we do believe Google and OpenAI also accomplish this level of quality because under the hood, they have very detailed prompts. Now, what they do is they don't expose those detailed prompts to the user. They rewrite the prompt under the hood, and then they feed that into their image model. But that creates lack of control for, again, professionals, for the community, because they may want to just change one word, and sure, you can do editing, but that's a little different from knowing exactly what is the structure of prompting for those models and how can you tweak it across many subjects, across many different backgrounds. Us being open weight and being part of the community, aspiring to be the standard for the community, we are very open in terms of, okay, what decisions we've made and what's the language. And you can take any image and describe it with our own API. I know the community has come up with many different LLM system prompts to describe scenes. And that's how we train them all. We train them all on these very long, detailed JSONs with bounding box control. and that gives us better quality, but that gives our users a lot of control over the output. I must explain that the bounding box is not a requirement. That is, the model has been trained with and without bounding box coordinates. The elements are required. That is, the model expects that JSON structure with a list of elements, but every element doesn't have to have a bounding box coordinate. That's optional. And so if somebody wants to leave that to the model to decide a cat and a dog dancing, whether the cat is on the left or whether the cat is on the right, that you can leave that decision to the model, but you have the option to specify the bounding box as well.
Gotcha. I do think it's might be helpful for some of the community members to understand at the beginning there's some misunderstanding between the safety filter and the JSON prompt training process. Like I guarantee you to this day, there's still some amount of community member who are just like, oh, they're gating behind the, some kind of system that doesn't allow me to generate even simple, one-liner prompt over here. But yeah, I'm sure you have more to say about the misunderstanding itself.
I should have used that gray image with images blocked by safety filter as my background.
That would be so funny.
That seems to be a meme for the community. Somebody on Reddit was saying in every image carousel, we should have that as a requirement, as the last image. I also don't know if you guys wanted to show a demo more like visually for the community, but just to keep it short, we did screw up in that, okay, that safety image shows up when the prompt is not familiar to the model. When the language is not really familiar to the model, it goes into unknown territory and it just blocks the output. Now, that is technically a bug, but it is a feature in that the community tried to understand and read the documentation. Okay, why am I getting this image? Maybe there's something that I'm doing wrong. And we had in the documentation, this model expects JSON format in this shape and form. You can use a large language model to rewrite it with this system prompt. You can call our API endpoint for extending prompts as free. And the full specification is in the docs. But then, not surprisingly, the model is stripped and shared across different repos, and people download and they don't read the documentation. So that image safety kind of acted as a way for a reminder that, oh, maybe there is a different prompting language that everybody needs to adopt. We would like to address it with a new version that doesn't have as much constraint in terms of the language, and hopefully can work with a more descriptive language without JSON too. And that's been a feedback from the community. So we would love to release that model and then focus more on LoRa, because we're worried if we release on our LoRa training and work with you all on LoRa training nodes and everything, then there will be a lot of LoRa's on the current foundation. And then if we release the next base, it's going to be annoying for people to move. So the plan for us is to release a new base with some of the fixes and then go all in on LoRa.
That's super cool.
Very cool. Right on. Well, let's jump over and we'll have Rob show us how some of this stuff works. And yeah, let me pull that up right now.
While they pull that up, I guess, are there anything that's super surprising for you in the releasing to open source community? What are some of the biggest kind of surprise from the team when they see the reaction from, I guess, Reddit or entire open source community?
I guess it's exactly JSON prompting, because when we were thinking about this, we weren't convinced we should build our own user experience and UX around bounding boxes, because we were like, this is too complicated. People will not do it because it's very abstract. You just draw a box and call it a cat, and then you draw a box and call it whatever background. So it was really surprising to us that actually community loves this feature and people want to control the composition. That wasn't obvious to us at all.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think it scares creatives when you have to structure your thoughts like the JSON. But as you can see here in our template, we have that magic prompt, which has quite a detailed, system prompt under the hood that can really bring like a brief or detailed description into that structure. So yeah, I guess we'll get started with this demo. I'm just going to quickly mute those nodes, but this is the default workflow in Comfy, and we're going to start actually just with, enhancing this pretty simple prompt and getting it into that JSON. Oh. Let's see, resolve them before running the workflow. Oh, excuse me. Live
Oh
demo.
yeah, it's okay. This is the
I've
way
used
it
it
goes.
before. Oh,
I think someone just asked if Mohammad can confirm a bounding box order matters in the JSON. In their test, it does. It looks like it does, but just want official confirmation.
Order of elements does matter, if that's the question. And it's designed to be more like back to front. That is, start from the smaller objects in the background and then come forward. I do think there's kind of, the problem is now you may have a lot of bounding boxes that are at the same depth. And then there's also an order. I believe it's left to right to the bottom right. And then text usually appears at the end.
yeah. So here we got a quick generation. You can really see, this image itself is quite nice. It follows the structure of the prompt pretty well, and the high level description, and then we start getting into the color palettes, which I think is like such an amazing
So
element
handy.
to this model. You can get like so granular. Once again, that control is just been so fun to play with, and using it to really refine and tweak. But what I also love about this model is the fact that you trained it with very flexible sizes, so you can get really fun aspect ratios here, like 4:1 or 1:4. So yeah, that's an element to the model that is just so great.
Also, look how fast it is.
Yeah, this is on default. We can even get faster here with the turbo, but I also prepared a couple more workflows. We can jump into those. So we do have somewhat of an image to image workflow where we're using an LLM to, get those bounding boxes from this input image. Yeah, you could use Florence too, and some open models, but here we're using Gemini 3.1. But yeah, just on the model itself, I've been super impressed with the graphics and the texture that you can get. I feel like there's such, like you mentioned, Mohammed, how there's the cultural diversity that your team has. I feel like you see that in the model with the amount of like aesthetic styles that you can really push the model towards. So that's been so fun to play with, and I know the community has been raising that quite a bit.
Yeah, that's going to trickle down into the way Laura's work too, I think. That's just really going to like amplify what's possible in the model by then like drilling down into specific styles. I'm really excited to see what happens with the Laura community.
It looks really good. You should train a Laura for you guys. Comfy brand Laura.
It is very interesting where I think a core problem a lot of times when you are using, our own software for brand purposes for, material, you really see where all of the enterprise, those customers are coming in from. It's like, sure, I can go dump as much context as possible into an editing model and hoping that will work. or I can really just, kind of fine tune it against the style, then just making sure that every time I would get exactly what I want. And that's definitely something that, like, we're pretty excited to be able to lean in for this type of model to, in the end, for all of our marketing campaigns, just dump product or dump materials out there.
Yeah. And just back here, this node is, this has been used by so many people. Shout out Kajai. This is kind of where I think the magic of the JSON prompting is. It's not in the actual, text. It's in the visual editor where you can very precisely control the bounding boxes. And it's just been so much fun to iterate on an initial bounding box structure and really tweaking things to your liking. So, that's
actually one question I had for you, Mohammed. Was that a decision based on wanting to have a model that's really good for design, for layouts for people, or was it just something that kind of happened when you started doing the B-Box stuff?
No, we care a lot about graphic design. We think that's how we can differentiate as a company. And when you think of image generation, like obviously design is one of the most important use cases. And we were hoping this model gives you editable text. That was part of our goal as the model release. But that's gonna come back later. But because of that ambition to make it editable text and make it really good for graphic design, that we have very specific descriptions of text. We actually have a category of elements for text and object. We care about text rendering and then composition. And so yeah, that was very intentional.
So you can describe the type of fonts you want, things like that, and it'll actually, because like a lot of models will just kind of decide for you, what it feels the vibe of the typography should be. But yeah, that's really interesting.
And we are hoping to actually release a prompt guide with more details, because we had a documentation with some high-level description. I guess high-level description is our high-level description of the prompt. But yes, we are hoping to release a prompt guide with more details. And it's really wonderful to see the community read line by line, or their agents have run line by line all of the documentation and prompting. So we're hoping to release even a more in-depth documentation for the community soon.
Amazing.
The other thing the community does a lot of times is go figure out random corners of these model capabilities themselves, which is, pretty surprising. I think they're just people, running on their machine and then training, fine-tuning LoRa's on top of it, and in the end coming back with a result that's actually somewhat surprising a lot of times for even the model researching teams overall. I don't know if this is, you guys have gotten this experience yet, but I think in some of the other models that people release, I didn't know you can do it this way, or kind of even at the low level kind of control to add all of these components or blocks.
Yeah, and just on that, here's a JSON prompt that I actually got from the community where you can generate a character sheet. So I found this on Reddit. We'll link the user in the description to the video, but it does such a great job at just, once again, that control, and you can generate character sheets, get turnaround views, get very descriptive with the outfit of the character. And for an open model, this is, just crazy to think that it's at this point where you can, have such control once again over.
Yeah, not only that, you can tell it exactly where you want this grid to live. Like with the text-based natural language models, you really are just, I would like a grid. I hope it's the right shape. I can't really decide if I want to chop it up in a certain way every single time, because the grid might not come out the same every single time. But in this case, you're actually you're sequestering the image out into sections, so you can say here, 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 here. So this is what really works well when we want to split aspect ratios in the same thing. You've got accessories, you got a close up, you got 4 tall shots. You get a lot more data into every image than you would otherwise. You would have to have 2 character sheets to make that work. So like that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, this is really wonderful. And on that note, hopefully we can add the link to that Reddit post that talks about character consistency by, including the picture of the character on the left and getting the model to fill the image on the right. That's actually how we trained our character consistency model 6-9 months ago. I forget exactly when it was. So we released our character model. It was the best at the time. Rest in peace. I guess the space is moving so fast. And Nano Banana launched after. But that model was trained with that trick of, on the left, you have the image of the person, and on the right, you do in painting to recreate that person. But we trained it, we kind of did a fine tune of that left-right conditioning to generate character consistency. And it was so shocking to us that, the community figured this out. And I suppose a lot of these community members are just so passionate about what they do, and they may not have, research training in AI. So in terms of surprising results, that was one of the things I saw that blew my mind. And this is, how did you know this trick? And yes, this is how we trained our model back then. We never talked about it publicly because we were closed at the time. But yeah, this community is just phenomenal in their skill and ability, and really wonderful to be seeing all of the interaction with what we do.
That's so cool. They well, the one thing our viewers love to hear about is like any weird emergent properties that you found, like because of the training method you used. Was there anything that really surprised you when you were starting to do inference with this model that was just like, whoa, we didn't even train that, but it does do that? Were there any of those like magical moments?
One thing I've seen is like people specify the color palette on a per bounding box basis. Does that work actually? Because we didn't train it though.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have the audience let us know if they've tried that.
Because I saw in many JSON prompts they do like color palette on a per bounding box basis. We haven't trained it that way, so if that's working as well as the community wants, that's an emerging property for sure. And I mean, one thing that does surprise us to some extent is like just the stylistic variation that people talked about. And I saw multiple people in the community commented on that is, hey, this is the best model for art. And we try to, capture as many different styles as possible and keep the model more like a raw model that's not super opinionated and can capture many styles. But it was really nice to see the community confirms that and embraces that.
One thing that really strikes me is a lot of models, they get very like smooth and shiny, and they have a sort of almost glossed over look, but there's a cinematic grain or almost like filmic quality to a lot of the shots that I'm getting out of this model, and I really love it. And I'm wondering, was that a decision made in the training data, or did that just sort of happen? Because it feels like it feels like it might be from the training material, but yeah, I'm just curious.
Very, very intentional. Like, this is something we care about day in and day out. We look at texture. You're like, okay, this is not acceptable. This is too AI look. I think we still have more work to do. Sometimes photography starts to look a little more illustration, like very hyper realistic illustration. But yeah, this is kind of the ethos of the company, that like we want to combine our passion for AI with our passion for creativity and arts. And as a result of that, if you join as an AI researcher, you gotta get your training on what is AI look and what is non-AI look and what is texture, and like, okay, raw images. We look at images with, raw images to really be able to know this is a real image and this is a grain. And yes, so that's been very intentional. I think we have still more work to do there.
We have a special guest at this moment. It's the original creator of Comfy. He would like to come on and say hi and ask some questions.
Well, hello there.
Mohammad meet Yannick. This is the original creator of Comfy, as you can tell from the of the unofficial.
Well,
Good to see you.
This is our it's our official mascot.
Unofficial
Yeah,
mascot.
well, he likes to say she's unofficial, but yeah. So basically, yeah, model is pretty good. Only issue is I had a bit of an issue prompting this character because well, when I didn't use the JSON prompting, I got safety filtered, which so yeah. First, is there a reason? Like, what's the reason why you put the safety filter on the model? Because I think a lot of our community wants to know the reason.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a challenging time to kind of prevent illegal use of these models from legal use of these models. And it's our first attempt to release an open weight model. So we thought there is a way for us to build safety into the weights of the model to prevent, at least make an attempt to prevent illegal use of the model. But I do think that was a little rushed and it had other negative impact on the model. And we heard the community. There have been a lot of reaction and thoughtful feedback, and we're gonna fix that in the next version of the model. But that was the reasoning, to just, kind of make sure that the model doesn't allow for some of the inappropriate use.
Yeah, I think that's fine if you put safety built in the model. Pretty much all models do this. It's just they do it in a more friendly way. I find it's more, if you prompt something that's unsafe, it's just the model will generate something that kind of follows the prompt, but without the unsafe part, instead of just giving you a refusal image. So yeah, I think if you do it, you'll have a much better reaction from the community.
Feedback received, yes.
Yeah. And another thing that some people were asking is why not publish higher precision weights? Why only publish the quantized weights?
That's a good question. That was our thinking in terms of how can we release a very high quality model that is also easier to serve on a consumer GPU, because obviously there's a RAM limitation, while allowing for kind of deeper partnership with select companies who want higher precision weights.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason people were asking for that is because a lot of people do their own quantizations of the model, because different GPU hardware, certain quantization runs better on different GPU hardware, and you have community members that do their own quantizations, and for the best results, they prefer having the highest quality weights available. So that's so that's why people were asking that question. And another question is why the dual model architecture for one model in the positive and one model in the negative. I've seen this idea before, but this is the first time I actually we see an open model that uses this.
Yeah, I mean, we've been obviously iterating on different variants of the model. And what we found is in order to fix some of the texture and color saturation issues that are associated with AI models, having a more customized negative and positive model helps. And so we just released that as part of this model.
Yeah,
so I think the version of the model that doesn't have the negative model will just produce more plastic skin, more saturated color. I think some people in the community try to And so that's simply our secret sauce that made some of the older models that we had higher quality, and so we released that with an open weight model. There might be other ideas. There might be ways of having a symmetric positive and negative model that achieves the same quality, but this is our best effort and the best idea we have so far.
Yeah. So, but if someone were to train a LoRa, do they only train it on the positive, or should they train it on both?
What we've done internally is only train it on the positive side,
Okay.
and that seems to work fine. I don't know if that's the experience from you or the rest of the community as well.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say I've seen a lot of people, they plug the LoRa into both chains. If they're adding a LoRa, they make sure it's out like one strength on both chains. Apparently that works better than one. I haven't done enough testing to have an opinion on that.
Okay, I gotta go back to my team and gain a better understanding of like which version, because there's some transformation of the weights as well as part of releasing the open weight model. So I don't know exactly what amounts to what. So gotta check with the team. But that's very valuable feedback, and that's an important priority for a team to focus on LoRa. Once we fix the base, LoRa will be the next high priority for us.
Very cool. Is there any upcoming kind of LoRa related releases that you guys are going to push out? I've also heard there's tease around kind of editing capabilities on text and on further control out there. I don't know if there's anything you can share right now yet.
Yeah, so there are 3 different efforts. One is the new base, and as part of that, we want to enable LoRa in a more native way, release our own code, all the recipes, the way we find them optimal. Obviously, the community may have even a better recipe, and would love to work with the community to finalize the recipe for LoRa. And then image to image, obviously, that's a very, very popular ask from the community. We think that's complementary to LoRa, and then would love to work with the community to really build these bespoke editing capabilities. Like imagine like a picture to anime model, or like a very high quality product photography model that is better than any of the closed source models. I do believe for editing in particular, curation is again very, very important, and would love to work with the community to build these like top-notch workflows for editing. So that is 2 steps, like the base for editing and then LoRa recipe for editing. And then editable text is another important focus for us, but given the success of open weight, that's kind of taking a back seat, and we want to release the editing first and then go back to editable text. And a lot of our enterprise customers are interested in that. For branding, graphic design, that's very important. You want to kind of keep using your font in images, and you want to make it editable so you can change the copy without changing the image. So that's the kind of 3rd category of work that we're very excited about.
Right on. Ostris, one of our amazing community members, asked, was unconditional trained a specific way with lower quality data set, or just zeroed conditioning with the same data set?
Hey, Ostris, thanks so much
for all.
Thanks so much for all of the work you've been doing as part of the community. And I saw Ostris had the fast model LoRa, and I'm curious. I guess that's a question from me for Ostris. How did you train that LoRa? Anyway, so for the negative pass, we often train with a lower quality data set to kind of guide against bad generations. So your intuition is right.
Thanks, appreciate that.
I guess, should we go through some of the chat questions?
Yeah, there was a few more questions here. The most pressing one, I think, was, do you have plans to do any sort of control net, like conditioning level sort of, IC, that kind of thing?
We were thinking editing will be potentially a big better focus, but a very good editing base that can do sketch to image, that can do depth to image, that can do regional editing, style transfer, lighting transfer. So our focus is kind of combine all of the editing capabilities into a model that can be bringing out those capabilities with text-based prompting. I would love to hear if you guys think there's a better approach and if ControlNet has some advantages over that approach, but that's been our plan.
Right on. Someone else, Oddwave, asked, I saw people doing LoRa's with multiple characters for Ideogram with good output. Any suggestion on how to achieve that, or any general advice on making LoRa's for Ideogram in general?
One observation is, yes, that was super fun to see. I think the bounding box control helps teaching the model concepts faster and more effectively, because I always use this example. If you give me an image and say, let's say the image of us in this live stream, you say 4 people on the live stream, and one of them has a mascot, 2 of them in one scene with a Golden Gate background with a mascot, etc. Another one has. So you can describe the scene in excruciating level of details, but you can't easily point to patches in the image. Whereas with bounding box, you can point to different patches in the image and say exactly, okay, this region has a wooden color background with texture, etc. And that helps the model train faster, because the model doesn't have to decode the description and the association of the description and different patches in the image. It can really use one image to learn more bits of information, to have more bits of information and learn faster. And we think that's probably very, very helpful for LoRa, because in LoRa, you only have a few images of a character, and training too long often damages your LoRa. So you want to train for as few steps as possible on as few images as possible. And so bounding box is really important for LoRa. My suggestion for LoRa is train on bounding boxes, but drop bounding box information with some probability so that the model doesn't have to take bounding box as input. And another suggestion is try to mimic that language, kind of have the reverse system prompt for your VLM that describes the image, and try to kind of follow the JSON language as much as possible with style description, with high-level description. You can call our describe endpoint. That's a paid endpoint. It's pretty cheap to just get a sense of how the description works, and then you can mimic that on your local machine. I think that will likely give you better results, because the closer the language to the language of the model, the fewer steps of training you need.
That makes sense. And then it might be good advice for anyone who wants to caption their data set for an LoRa like this, to actually do it through your endpoint, so it's getting the closest conditioning that it's going to get. And I love the idea of actually telling it where things are without having it have to figure that out itself. That's very cool.
Yeah, I think they should use our endpoint as a starting point. The challenge is if you have multiple characters and you want to name them, our describe, our captioning endpoint will not know the name of the character. And that's the magic of LoRa training that, members of the community know better than me. So they can start there, but they need to do their own kind of adjustments on top of the model. And when it comes to small text, our describe may not be the most accurate in small text. There may be other more state-of-the-art language models, visual language models that are better at text. So you can kind of decipher the language into a system prompt and then use your LLM of choice, maybe one that even costs more than our describe, to really get the details of the image right.
Right on. Isan had a question here. he's noticed that the model's generation show very strong text adherence, and they're curious about how prompt adherence and text accuracy was measured during training. I'm actually curious about that too. What's your method of like determining if it's doing good text or not? Do you point a VLM at it, or do you have the other internal methods of like OCR? We're just curious on a very nerdy level how you're doing the evaluation.
Yeah, evaluation is very, very difficult, unfortunately, with image models. At the end of the day, people got to look at them and do side by side to really see the texture. Unfortunately, a lot of the public benchmarks also aren't designed to measure some of the aspects of the images that the community cares about. But we do measure things like the loss function for training, as well as OCR, text accuracy, because we care about text accuracy. Those are some of the metrics that we use. And we also are in the process of developing better large language model based metrics to make it more automatable, make it more automated for evaluation. That is kind of an evolving area. And if somebody has a very good evaluator or ranker, would love to use it in our training.
On the benchmark side, I would say I'm curious on how you guys view it, because in general, we see this huge gap where on, X, people are just like, oh my God, look at these numbers, or, but on the creative side, for people who are actually doing work, they don't even know this is a thing. They don't really evaluate by going in there to like, oh my God, this is the top benchmark model, I must use it. They actually test themselves and then understand that. I don't know how you guys internally kind of balance this. Like, on one hand, there's the rhetoric around the entire AI ecosystem, and then on the other hand, there's professional usage.
So far, we've kind of completely ignored all of the benchmarks before this latest release, that we would just do our internal evaluation. We look at texture, we look at text accuracy, things that we care about, we think our users care about, and then let the benchmarking companies to benchmark our models. So I think for model development, you got to have a strong opinion. Okay, what do you care about? And just measure it internally and move forward. And our hope is the community sees the value and the brand has some recognition, and people see the benefit of that. For this release, though, we started talking with different benchmarking companies, and we realized, actually, there is a market of private evaluation for these models, that you can pay them and do private evaluation, and they don't release the ranking. So I suspect there's a lot of private evaluation happening for some frontier models, and they try to optimize for the benchmark, because that's what the X community or social media community cares about. But we didn't do any of that. So we just had the final checkpoints, and we were like, okay, could you please rate this checkpoint according to your mechanism? And I think it's an evolving field again. There are companies who care about evaluation and want to improve their evaluation. But the challenge is, if you're evaluating language models and coding agents and, all sorts of AI agents, as well as image and video models, it's very hard to make it perfect across the board. So hopefully there will be some companies that will evolve in the creative space to measure the quality of image and video models, because I believe the techniques required are a little different from the techniques required for measuring programming agent or just chatbots.
Yeah, 100%. I do find a lot of times the private, being public or private about the evaluation is also really important. When you have something out in the open, everyone gamified around that, and that evaluation system no longer actually is valid anymore. So it makes sense for folks to have this kind of private eval system. And also, the image space is so wide. There are models that do great on, animation. There's a model that does great on relighting, upscaling. I don't think any of the benchmark systems are very much looking at these things at all. So yeah, if you want to start a company around this, please do, because there will be 2 clients within this same call that would be in demand of it.
If that's not some alpha, I don't know what is. You take that and run with the chat. We had one more question from the audience too. Would it be possible to have polygonal bounding boxes, more than 4 corners? Would it be possible to draw sort of a bounding box around an object like a mask?
The model hasn't been trained that way, so feel free to test it. I don't think the model will be able to get it. I was thinking maybe rotated boxes is the first place to start, especially for text. If you want to kind of have an angled text, like you don't want to put the bigger bounding box and explain it's angled. But would love to, figure out with the community what makes sense, because Polygon then starts to become too many tokens. People are already complaining, oh, you used so many tokens for your bounding box coordinates, and like
it's fine when it's 5 sides, but when it's 300 sides, it's different.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, guys.
Go ahead.
It's Ideogram 4.0. That's why there's 4. If you are looking for the next version of 5.0, then you'll have 1 more corner over there.
How about 4.5?
Well, this has been amazing. If Yoland, if you guys have any more questions, we're gonna hit them now. Otherwise, this has been amazing.
Yeah, I really appreciate for your time, Mohammad, and great launch in here. Looking forward to kind of collaborating more with you guys. Last question is actually around this idea of, you guys have your own interface, your own infra systems. How do you balance this view of, working on your own interface or with your own audience, and also kind of collaborating with folks out there like ourselves or any other, tooling companies in terms of, broadening the reach of this model?
Yeah, we want to be the friendliest partner to everybody in the ecosystem, including you guys. And I think early days, our community can kind of attest to this. We had our own community chats on a weekly basis. We were trying to serve our own users directly. And now we are more at the infra level. We want to enable the creative ecosystem and be a good partner to you guys, to the developer community, and hear feedback and act on the feedback. And like, feedback is always right? Like there is something that the community is incentivized to come and tell us when we screw up and what they expected from us to do and what they want us to do. So we would love to be a friendly partner. At the same time, we are learning from the community. So for example, this bounding box control prompt builder, we thought initially maybe the community is not super interested, so we didn't build it into our own first-party app. But now, given the community, we want to go and build it back into our first-party app. We had some initial insights that customization is really important, so we had our own LoRa training product as part of the first-party Ideogram app. That got some traction, but that was based on our previous foundation, so we are very excited to kind of revamp that with bounding box and release a new version of that. But at the same time, we want to also enable ComfyUI nodes for training, or other platforms who want to allow LoRa training, or even local LoRa training, to have a standard recipe that other people can build on top of. So we are here to kind of provide options to the community. We think the community needs options, and that's the value of the open ecosystem, that other people can build their own tools, and it's going to be awesome.
Amazing. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's great. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks, Mohammad. Thanks, Yoland. Thanks, Yannick. Thanks, Rob.
Thank
We'll be back next. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll be back next week with more crazy stuff. Who knows what we'll be up to? But yeah, hopefully we'll
you guys. And very nice meeting you, Yannick. And big congrats on everything you guys have done. It's really fantastic to see, and we're just getting started.
Also, I forgot to mention Fennec Girl.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Thanks so much.